The New York Times reports this morning that some members of the special counsel's team believe that the Mueller report is more damaging to President Trump than Attorney General Barr has revealed in his short summary. The Washington Post goes on to say that the evidence on obstruction was, quote, alarming and significant, according to the investigators. Joining us now is Republican Senator John Kennedy. He serves on the Judiciary Committee. He's here to talk about this and so much more. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Alice.
Does it concern you that some of Robert Mueller's investigators believe that Attorney General Barr somehow mischaracterized their findings?
I read the New York Times article. It's very hard to evaluate because the investigators won't give their names. So, you can't judge their credibility. You don't know if they have an agenda. I think this time next week, in all likelihood, it'll be an academic question because I don't have any inside information, but I think Bill Barr is going to release the report sometime next week, the week after at the latest. Yeah. He said mid-April, and Bill Barr's a pretty straight shooter, and then we'll all get to judge for ourselves.
I mean, I think that what is significant, one of the things that's significant this morning is that there really were not leaks during the 2 years of the Mueller investigation. And so are you saying that you don't know that you believe that the Mueller team is credible?
Well, there were leaks. I mean, I read reports all the time, either that or the reporters.
Well, just to stop you for a second. I mean, a lot of that was based on court documents. You know, there were these speaking indictments, as they said. So much of, at least what I know, that we reported during the past 2 years was based on paperwork that was submitted to court. That's not a leak.
Well, I'm not saying CNN, but I read plenty of articles, at least implying that someone from the Mueller investigation had this to say about that. And they're hard to evaluate, as you know, when people don't give their names. My feeling about the whole report is let it all hang out. I mean, I know they have to redact grand jury materials because there's a federal statute making them do that. They've got to be concerned about national security, that sort of thing. But I think Bill Barr, whatever you might think of him, and I think he's a straight shooter, is not a dumbbell. He's a smart guy, and he is going to release, I believe, as much as he can, and I think it'll happen in the next 2 weeks. I'm not as concerned, Allison, about what the Washington elite thinks about the report, because everybody up here has an agenda one way or the other. I'm interested in what the American people think. They'll draw their own conclusions. For some, it'll be a big yawn. They'll be more interested in Justin Bieber sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber.
Is he doing that? That is fascinating.
He is. Yeah, I read that too.
Okay. I see your news sources are a little different than we may have suspected about you.
But Justin went on the record. He didn't try to hide his name.
All right. So in terms of your credo to let it all hang out, do you want to see President Trump's taxes?
Yeah, I would like to, but I think he has, at least if you take the president at his word, a legitimate reason for not turning them over. He says he's in the middle of an audit, and his CPAs say don't turn it over, and I take him at his word, and I respect that. And I think all things being equal, I would like to see president's taxes. I wouldn't be adverse to turning over my taxes. I don't have anything to hide.
Well, we'll see about that, Senator. But I mean, I guess my point is that it's you agree that it's totally within the purview of the chair of the Ways and Means Committee to get those taxes and to look at them.
I think it's probably within his purview. I think he has an ulterior motive.
What's that?
I think the chair hates President Trump.
What makes you say that?
It's just my judgment based on everything he said. He doesn't appear to me to be objective, and I think he wishes President Trump hadn't won the election.
But what has he said that's hateful?
Well, everything he says is hateful about the president. I just don't think he can be objective. Now, this is America. That's okay. You're entitled to have your opinion. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is, Allison, that I trust the American people, and I think they see through most of what we all do up here in I know you're in New York, but most of what we all do in Washington, D.C., because it's been my experience in Washington, D.C., there are two main rules. Number one, The main concern about everybody up here is to keep their job.
Yeah.
And number two, everybody's got an agenda.
Well, of course, I understand. Listen, New York is not that different. But just in terms of Richard Neal, Chairman Richard Neal, he seems to have an ironclad legal basis, predicate for asking
I'm not
for
saying
this.
he doesn't.
I hadn't heard him being quite as strong, as aggressive as you're saying that he has about President Trump.
Well, I don't think this is a news flash. I think that the strategy of my friends on the Democratic side of the aisle in both the Senate and the House is to give Trump as much trouble as they can and try to beat him in 2020. I don't think that's a news flash for most Americans.
I want to ask you about your bill, about what
Okay.
you're trying. How are you trying to protect sexual harassment victims? What's changing?
Well, it's a pretty simple bill. It says, look, if you work for the state, local, or federal government, and you're charged with sexual harassment, and you decide to settle the lawsuit, then you can't keep it from the public. You can't put a non-disclosure provision in your settlement where neither you nor the victim can talk. Now, if the alleged victim doesn't want it to become public, the alleged victim can keep it private, but the politician can't. And this is taxpayer money, and I think people, just because you're accused of something doesn't mean you're guilty of it.
Yeah.
But if you settle a lawsuit, you're spending taxpayer money.
But why
and
should
even
you?
if you're not, you ought to have to show people.
But why? Yeah, why should you pay? Why should taxpayers pay for anyone's sexual harassment settlement? I thought that there was a movement to make those private.
We did pass legislation to curb that abuse. But it's still possible, as I understand the law, to insist, say, okay, I'll settle the lawsuit, but I want a non-disclosure agreement so nobody can talk about it. I don't think that's fair. I think if you're in public office, it should be part of the public domain unless the alleged victim doesn't want it.
Yep. Do you think that Joe Biden's statement went far enough?
You know, I don't know. I was asked, I saw the video. I was asked about the former vice president's behavior. I don't know him. I've met him one time. I gave an honest answer. I think it's happened a lot, and it's very unnatural, abnormal. It's weird to me. I don't think it's a generational thing. I think I can see how someone, including but not limited to women, would find it inappropriate.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody tries to smell my hair, I'm not going to be a real happy guy about it.
Yeah. No, that is uncomfortable. And do you also think that it's uncomfortable to, have your breasts groped on a plane or have someone try to stick their tongue down your throat? Those are just two of the accusations made of the 15
sure,
against
if they're
President
true,
Trump.
Of course that's inappropriate. Look, I meant what I said. I didn't mean it directly toward Vice President Biden. This is no country for creepy old men or young men or middle-aged men. And if we've learned anything in the last 2 years, it's that these instances of harassment or semi-harassment, I know Vice President Biden said it's not harassment. Well, it's still weird. And I just think it's happened a lot more than I ever imagined, and it's wrong.
And you feel that way,
stop.
I mean, you feel that way across the spectrum, from Vice President Biden to President Trump.
I feel that about everybody. Now, just because you're accused of something doesn't mean you're guilty of it. You have the right to due process, and you have the right to say and defend that didn't happen and defend yourself.
Yeah.
But to the extent that it does happen, yeah, I mean, it's wrong. It's disgusting. And I think there's been a lot of it in this country, and I think it's usually by men, not always. And I think a lot of men figure, well, I've got this superior position here, and I can get away with it. And they shouldn't be able to, and I don't think they will anymore. And I don't mean any disrespect to Vice President Biden. He may be President of the United States, but I got to call him like I see him. And I think any fair-minded person would look at what he did in all the instances and say that's abnormal, it's unnatural, it's weird, it's kinky, it's creepy, it's whatever you want to call it.
Senator John Kennedy, thank you very much for sharing your perspective.
Thanks, Alice.
John.